Hello, welcome to my video journal, where I talk about things that I find fascinating, and I hope you do too. Here, in this episode, I changed the viewpoint. You used to be down there, now you're up here. This is how it's going to be every time now. Now I get a whole view of my room. Look, there's my little brain picture. That's my thing about honeybees, because I love honeybees. I think they hold the key to the universe. And then chart of electromagnetism, which I look at every now and then because I think it's cool. But anyways, that's not what we're going to talk about. We're not talking about electromagnetism. Today, we're going to be talking about emotions again and its relationship or bidirectional relationship with your physiology. So that bidirectional aspect is probably the most important part. So there's the psychological aspect of it, which I think is what we're going to talk about first, is our emotions do affect our psychology and the actual neural structuring of our brains, okay? And when that happens, we have to be prepared for the next best option, okay? It's all about adapting to the environment at hand when you're kind of experiencing those psychological effects and emotional ones, okay? The emotional ones which affect your psychological reasoning and understanding of the world around you. And that's important when we discuss the important factors in our physiology as well. So, because both of those affect each other, which is really the most important thing we need to talk about. Because if you're trying to break a cycle, let's say you have like depression or anxiety or chronic illnesses, all of those are going to both be affected by your mind and your body, okay? And a lot of people talk about breaking bad habits, okay? That is exactly what you should be doing. And the best thing to do is to eat healthy food, work out, socialize, understand yourself, express yourself honestly, care about yourself so you can then care about others and show compassion stemming from a place of maturity rather than insecurity. Okay? That's really the most important part about understanding the connections between how to positively express yourself to then change your psychology, which in turn affects your physiological responses and its wellness and its being, okay? So that's really important to kind of break that negative loop. The problem is that when one thing bad happens in the brain or in the body, it's bound to go on a downward spiral, okay? We don't have automatic responses to fix negative emotions or negative physiological responses. We do, but we have coping mechanisms within the mind which oftentimes are premature or immature to the actual problem. And a lot of that has to do with what? Our physiology, how we're treating ourselves and how we're treating our body. Because if our mind is strong but our body is weak, when we break psychologically, that is going to have drastic effects on yourself, and it's going to be very difficult to overcome because of how bad your body is feeling, even if your mind was doing all right. Okay, so that's why exercise is so important, especially cardiovascular exercises, because what it's shown is that when you get your heart rate pumping and you're moving, what it does is that it creates an environment for your brain to change. All right, and if you're looking to grow and to change, you need that exercise to make your brain a little more flexible and plastic and able to orient itself towards a better experience. Okay, so that is absolutely vital if you're looking to just aim upwards and grow as a person. Okay, a lot of it has to do with both your mind and your body. And I just want to stress that relationship, because if your physiology is feeling bad, your mind is going to be more likely to break. And if your mind is feeling bad, then your body is more likely to break, okay? So you have to balance that relationship and integrate the best parts of those things into your experience. You have to integrate how to have a positive psychological experience and a physiological one. So like connecting with friends. Maybe if you want to, do both things at the same time, you can go work out with your friends. Strike a conversation up at the gym. You will have no idea. If you're an introvert, especially, who just kind of does their own thing, You have no idea how much that is going to dramatically affect your mind just by starting a conversation and say, how are you doing today? You're going to go crazy, I promise, because I'm an introvert and I had to learn how to do that. I had to learn how to actually talk with people, okay? It's a hard thing to do, and what's even harder is talking with people while expressing yourself genuinely. If you are able to achieve that, in doing what you want to do from a positive, caring, compassionate place, while, being socially acceptable, that is a very hard thing to refine. But once you do and you practice that, practice being honest in your expression towards people, and do that in a place that, expresses positive emotions like love. Honesty is the most positive emotion, if you'll believe it or not. But you want to express genuinely positive emotions to people. And in order to do that, you have to know yourself. And a lot of that has to do with introspection. And so if you want to find yourself and do that by, going to the gym and just putting in your earphones, listening to your books, or, I would honestly focus on, not even listening to music. I wouldn't even listen to music at all. At least not music with words, right? Because when you're trying to change yourself, you shouldn't be listening to other people. I know that sounds crazy, but you should be, hold on. Listening to other people's lyrics, because a lot of the times there is that deep emotional incentive behind their words, and so that is going to psychologically affect you. And so I would listen to meditation music or an audiobook that you find fascinating and you want to, maybe it's a subject you want to grow in, right? Do things that actually create a positive experience. We've all heard of the placebo effect, right? And that is truly a fascinating thing that your body does. And from that, we get a placebo effect when we take antidepressants, right? Or, different pills that we think are going to help us in our upwards aim and to have a better experience. A lot of the times what happens when you take an antidepressant, you're like, oh, well, this is supposed to help me. I guess I should do things that are also going to help me. And you're going to start maybe having good hygiene, right? Maybe sleeping a little more, maybe talking with your friends, maybe you start smiling a little bit more as well, and you start creating a better experience for yourself with a little bit of help. And it's actually you, your mind, and your body doing things to actually create a more positive experience, all right? So it's partly the antidepressant pill. Partly, yes, because it is affecting your mind. But through that, you start doing things that are better for you. And then eventually you don't need those antidepressants because you're in a rhythm. You understand, you're kind of in a flow state of sorts, because, you allowed yourself to fully transform thanks to a little bit of help from those antidepressants. Because it's really you. It really is you. And, I think that's where a lot of people are like, oh, you don't need antidepressants. You can just do it yourself. Suck it up. It's like, well, no. Don't suck anything out. You don't need it because you can express yourself. Once you learn to express who you are into the world around you, and you're able to do that and receive love and, I guess, attention almost, because, you want to put yourself out there and have people understand and hear you. And a lot of times we don't feel like anybody understands us. And that's okay, because what's also the problem there is you're not understanding the other person, You got to understand, if you want people to receive you, you have to receive them. You have to want to understand them as well. You can't just all think about yourself, okay? You have to be altruistic, because otherwise what's going to happen is you're going to try to be honest, as best you can, and you're not going to receive it. And you're going to wonder why. Well, it's because you completely ignored the entire other person in front of you. That's why. You're not supposed to just start at the top and be like, oh, this is everything that I've ever wanted to express before. Or maybe some parts of it that are a little, complex in nature. You're not going to get anywhere because you didn't start at a fundamental level of understanding each other and the relationship that it holds. And maybe you'll realize that as you, really get close to people and, specific individuals, you won't ever get to kind of the places that you really wanted to get to, in your mind and what you fantasize about. But you realize that that relationship you have with that person is still beautiful and wonderful and worth diving into, and you'll find things about yourself that you never even realized were there, right? So a lot of the times we create fantasies about people and fantasies about ourselves, okay, of what we think we look like, and that comes from a sense of self and our own subjective conscious experience, and that is a good thing, definitely a good thing. But it is still going to kind of change when you start taking life a little more seriously, okay? And I guess that's really what's going to help your emotional and physiological health, is taking life seriously. And it's hard to, because you think of seriousness as like, you're just going to work super hard and burn yourself out, and that's the only way to get to success. It's like, whoa. I didn't say do things crazy and overwork yourself. I said take life seriously. And that means taking every single aspect of life seriously. And that is completely different than overworking yourself. So you should take fun seriously. You should take work seriously. You should take health seriously. You should take relationships seriously. You should take yourself seriously. Okay? Those are the things that I mean when I say, and take rest seriously. That is the most important thing you could do, is take those aspects of life, all of those aspects, and even, a lot of personal aspects that I didn't mention. Those are just an overview of like what we could collectively do. But what about what you can take seriously as an individual that not really anyone else can? And I guess I just say all this in hopes that you focus on this instead of the negative feedback loop that happens when we focus on negative emotions. And I don't mean processing your negative emotions and understanding where they come from is a good thing, but staying on them is what leads us to that negative feedback loop, to where we have a psychological response that is negative, and that in turn affects chronic illnesses or bad physiological responses, and that in turn, that cry for help from our body is going to go to our brain, which creates more negative emotions, and then it continues this ultimate feedback loop because we're not understanding what our mind or our body is saying because we haven't processed anything. That doesn't mean staying there and only talking about it. It means processing and understanding what are the necessity or requirements for growth. Okay? Learn those necessary requirements, okay? And you're not going to have a terrible experience if you do that. It's so interesting how once you start going down, you're more likely to continue going down forever. But if you turn around and you switch a couple things, growth is very, very likely to happen. Very likely to happen, actually. And so it's that constant fight, and it's not always going to be up or always going to be down. It's going to be very much a struggle, and it's a fight. And I would say it's even a struggle going down, because you're really trying your best to have a full experience, but you're not listening to your physiological responses that are inducing an emotional response, which induce a emotional introspection, and then you process that internally without understanding the problem, which leads to more physiological damage, and it creates this bidirectional feedback loop, just like I'm talking about. Okay, and so you don't want to just, if you're psychologically hurting, you don't want to just work out, or if you're having bad physiological responses, you don't want to just express yourself genuinely. While those things will help each other, they're not going to get to the bottom of the problem. It's that relationship, that symbiotic relationship between your mind and your body, that is going to excite a wonderful experience. And I can't stress enough what it means to have a good experience. It is a very good one, I promise. And I don't want to sound like a motivational speaker, but I think a lot of them have some pretty good stuff to say, and they're speaking from, experience. And it's hard because it's a lot of the times we know what to do, right? We know what to do, but we don't truly value it. I've talked in multiple videos in the past about our relationship between the temporal parietal junction and the ventral medial prefrontal cortex, where we have this where we have the temporal parietal junction shifting our perspective every time our ventral medial prefrontal cortex is shifting our fundamental values. Okay? So your perception on change, your perception on change and your perspective is going to be different when you change your fundamental values. And so if your perspective on change is like, I know what to do, but I don't really want to do it, then you have to actually believe. You haven't learned to believe in change. Okay? And a lot of that comes from, having enough of the downward spiral. Okay? You have enough and you're like, I'm done. I don't care what I value. I'm just going to do everything I can to work towards a greater experience. And you do for a little bit but you didn't really change your fundamental values. And so you're going to go up out of desperation and not out of a good work ethic. You're going to fall back into despair because you're like, oh, well, I did good enough. Now I'm going to go back to living comfortably. And that's the process a lot of us go through. And, I will say not a lot of us, some of us, don't really have the opportunity to truly get into a mindset of pure positive experience because life is not, purely positive. But you want to experience the full spectrum of human emotions and understand why you're having these negative responses because it's either physiological. Sorry, my mom beeped my phone and so the connection stopped. But all that to say is that emotions have a significant impact on our physiology through the mind-body connection. And this connection is characterized by a complex interaction between our psychological states and physical processes. And it is so vital for us to actually value the aim towards a better experience. That's really all I have to say. And you can heed my words. At least consider them, Be empathetic towards the perspective I am showing you guys, okay? And just remember to know nothing, consider everything, and I will see you in the next video.